What is good? So now we're going to talk about Ryan. Now, Ryan is kind of one of my favorite case studies because on paper, he's a pretty tough client. So you can see this picture of him on the left. He is just like the epitome of this kind of like boring, square looking guy that is just so set in this kind of provider frame kind of energy. Like girls would see him as a way to get their bills paid or a free dinner. Which is, pretty much exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to, create genuine attraction and chemistry with women. So we had a lot to work on with him, but as you can see, we did a pretty great job with him. On the right, there's him with some really, really hot girls here, some really beautiful women. And, there's great body language and great energy between them. And we got him into a place where, he wasn't having to pay for expensive dates or like pay anyone's bills or anything. He was just having these very genuine, authentic, sexually charged interactions with girls, which was awesome. So Ryan's problem was that he was pretty kind of suffocated by his insecurities. So Ryan is, he's a shorter guy. He's not traditionally like hella handsome. He's not like a bad looking guy. He's not like ugly, but like you can see even in his facial expression here, like he's very stifled. He's very stiff. Like he kind of looks like, but he's got a good job. He's a bit of an older guy. A lot of women sort of actually really like dating older guys. They say that a man's prime is sort of between about 35 and 50 compared to women where it's between like 18 and 25 or something crazy, right? So the problem with him was that because of these insecurities that he had, and he actually was insecure about his age, so he was stuck in this kind of provider frame, feeling like he had to kind of like coax the women to go on dates with him by taking them to like bougie places or like impress them, and the girls wouldn't stick around. Like even if he did manage to kind of fuck her one time or whatever, they wouldn't stick around because the genuine attraction wasn't there. They didn't kind of feel good about the experience. So Ryan actually had, quite a lot of resentment towards women. And he kind of felt frustrated that he felt like he was having to try so hard to entertain them, and that he would have no chance if he didn't entertain or impress them because he wasn't tall or, traditionally good looking. Remember, he once said to me, he was like, like whenever I go to bars, it just seems like the only people who have any chance are the tall guys. And I was like, it's not true, but whatever. So he had layers of this ego defense that was stopping him from tapping into the sense of humor, and a lot of societal programming holding him back from his attractive personality traits. You can see here on the right, he says, I don't know how guys can keep going through rejection after rejection and not let it faze them. Maybe they're just built differently to me, and this is something that a lot of guys face. A lot of guys go through a lot of rejections and it hits them pretty hard, it's difficult for them to keep pushing and keep pushing. But the thing that we always try to tell them is it's like, it's actually not you that they're rejecting. It's the specific thing that happened in that moment that they are rejecting. So it's like, it's not you. It might have been what you did or what you said or the way you moved or your body language. And these are all things that we can work on and change. So when you take away that personal factor, it stops hitting you so hard emotionally, and you start just thinking of it as like, you wouldn't take it personally if you, for example, if you were trying to cook something and you burned it, like you burned the thing that you were cooking, you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm such a piece of shit, I don't know how people can get through it when they keep burning their food. Instead, you would just go read a recipe and learn how to cook it properly, and the next time you would cook it better and you would have a better experience. It's exactly the same principle. Even if you're getting rejected, it's just because there's something that you're not doing right that we need to address. And it's not actually a personal reflection on you as a human being or your value or your worth as a man. So the big breakthrough for Ryan was we did a lot of very kind of like nitty gritty, very specific, in the trenches text coaching with him. So he would literally send us, hundreds and hundreds of text conversations with girls that he'd met on dating apps and in person. And we give him kind of like fallback lines and concepts that he could use to maintain attraction and interest without compromising his frame or putting him in provider mode. And eventually we were able to hone his instincts so that he knew what to say and how to respond without needing so much help. And now he's actually regularly fucking hotties without being this provider or sugar daddy frame at all. And in his case, you know, because he had these layers of ego defense, he just needed to be told what to do and told what to say. That's all he needed, to be able to learn through action and, you know, reaction what would work and what wouldn't. And he was constantly, you know, surprised when things that to me and my assistant coach seemed obvious would work. And he'd be like, wow, like, I didn't think that would work. It's like, well, yeah, like we know it works because we've been doing this for years. But for him, this was, you know, this was just something that he had to experience and see for himself. And then the closes started coming in. So you can see here, you know, this is, he's replying to his same message from earlier saying, I banged her finally. And then a different girl, he's like, I banged her. And then there's this picture of him on the right in his elevator with one of the girls, you know, and this actually happened quite suddenly. So weeks and weeks of coaching, kind of, you know, hit and miss responses or whatever. Then, you know, like 2 girls in 1 week, he was just like, yeah, like I banged a couple of them. And now he has this roster of hot girls that he can fuck whenever he wants. He's always, you know, seeing new girls and stuff. And he's not stuck in this provider frame anymore, relying on his money and his success to attract women. He finally kind of let go of his insecurities. He got past his own ego, and he got the girls of his dreams. And now you can see here, these are the girls, you know, these are all in his elevator, in his apartment building, like, assumingly after he's banged them. You know, he's managed to make that significant change to his behavior and his communication, because that's all it was with him. It was his communication. He wasn't communicating in a way that the girls found attractive. And now he's dating, you know, like he really likes these kind of like Eastern European looking girls, and he's getting all the girls he wants now, you know. It's really sometimes just a case of embracing new paradigms. You know, most of the reason men struggle is because they've been living in a false paradigm about women. They've been told the wrong thing. They've been taught the wrong thing growing up, whether it's by their family or by their environment or whatever. And you have to give your brain proof that you can have a new life, which is why we had to coach him word by word through these text conversations, so we could prove to him through experience, even if they were outside of his comfort zone. He just had to be willing to follow the instructions. And that transformation happened externally first, and now is beginning to filter through to his internal, and he's feeling like a different kind of person. Physical traits like height, age, and being good looking are way less important than you think. Look at someone like Hugh Hefner, just kind of like this old guy who's, you know, banging a bunch of girls or whatever. And sometimes you need to be told what to say first before you understand why. And you have to be willing to just, like, sometimes it's like, you know, you're going to hire a coach to work with a coach. Just got to do what the coach says, even if you don't fully understand it at first, and trust the process. So hopefully this story resonated with you. I think there's a lot of stuff in here that a lot of guys deal with. You know, after doing this for many, many years, there's pretty much no client that I've ever encountered where I've been like, I can't help this guy. Like, I'm pretty confident that we can attack and like zone in on the issues that any client faces. It's just a case of whether or not they're willing to do the work and follow the instructions.